So, as part of our summer exhibition, Death, we've invited 4 contemporary artists and scholars to discuss the central piece of the exhibition, which is the Gao Brothers' Execution of Christ. And really, we're interested in getting into some of the nuance of the piece and really sort of digesting really the political nature of the work, as well as sort of more generally how the Gao Brothers have positioned themselves as artists who look at oppression and violence and hypocrisy in their work. And really hear a little bit more about the perspective of artists who have lived in China and worked in China and know how that experience is. And so first and foremost, I'll just introduce you to everyone here. We've got Sheng, who is a painter, and or actually you work in multiple mediums. You came to the UK to study at Central St. Martin's, and your work is very, I would say, sort of focused on looking at human experience in historical terms. So most well known for huge monotone paintings with pops of color. Voon Pow Bartlett is a scholar and an artist who focuses on Beijing artists mostly, yes? Or no?
That is for part of my studies, but now just on a global scene, yes. Quite interested in the way, you know, all the artists from all over the world operate.
Excellent. And then Le Goa is a painter who also studied at Central St. Martin's.
That's right.
And his work is sort of balanced between an abstraction and a figuration. And I sort of see it as they fight against each other. There's a sort of struggle in the work.
Yeah, this is about something, it's a balance and desire and spirituality, these sort of things.
Excellent. And then Haili is I'd say installation-based artist. Looks at nature in all of your work and sort of bringing in natural environments into a man-made space. And you also came here for a master's, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not at Central St. Martin's, though.
No, it's Wimbledon Arts College.
Gotcha. Great. So, like I said, I'm most interested in really beginning with the work. So, talking about the Gao Brothers piece and some of the references that are there, because it's a work that is very nuanced and very layered. You know, you can look at it and appreciate the immediate impact of it as, you know, sort of simply as there's 7 figures of Mao pointing at a symbol of Christianity, which is Jesus. And so on its most basic level, it looks at communism and oppression. But of course, there are multiple layers within the work beyond that, right? It's not just simply about that. So I just love to hear, you know, any of the sort of symbolism that you guys pick up within it, or how you feel the work.
Yeah, well, Mao says most important things is recognize who is your friend, who is your enemy. So this particular sculpture, as Gao Brothers just made, is they point the gun to the Jesus. That means Jesus is his enemy. And Mao always struggle about this question. He cannot find the real answer because he don't know the principle. Because when you have the standard or principles, then you know who is your friend and who is your enemy. And most of the time, his friends in the end become his enemy. So he's like facing all the enemies in the end. Yeah, so I find this piece very important. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think obviously on the face of it, it's a huge piece of political work, and I'm full of admiration for, you know, there are a lot of Chinese, courageous Chinese artists in China making work about China that it's not necessarily approved of and it's censored. But I'm also impressed with the way the Gao Brothers grab hold of the pantheon of Western art history, if you like, with both hands, or well, both sets of hands, the two of them, and in quoting Manet's execution of Maximilian, they're actually grappling with this history of history painting, and so Manet already actually stripped history painting down to its essentials by the execution of Maximilian, because instead of something that is almost effete or grandiose or formulaic, he turned it into something, stripped it into something very, very immediate, very raw, and also in his very, very kind of cool manner, he reduced something that's formulaic into something, what he calls the truth. He's interested in the truth. Just as he stripped the Olympia from a nude into and all the kind of history of nude paintings in mythology and religious painting into something that is a naked woman, some would even say a lady of the night. So something very, very truthful and immediate about his paintings. So I'm just interested in the way the Gao brothers then grapple with that, and instead of making a painting, which execution of Maximilian is, they made a sculpture. So instead of turning all the soldiers with their kind of back to us, the kind of composition is different, and also without the paintings kind of like foregrounding, they also made Mao, we discussed it before, quite large in size, almost like a painting. So Christ, towards the end of the painting, looks smaller. And so I'm just wondering, obviously they're very, very knowledgeable. They're actually talking about the Chinese contemporary art in terms of the Western framework, Western critical framework. Are they also talking about the history of sculpture, which I'm sure these gentlemen will, tell us about? History of sculpture in China, which is not about art, it's always been utilitarian. Sculpture in China, up to recently with Chinese contemporary art, has always been tomb figures, civic figures, even with
real monuments.
Exactly, rather than works of art. So the fact that they made this piece into a sculpture, I think, is also significant in the fact that they're trying to, perhaps come to a common framework, a critical framework where we can discuss fine art discourse. In terms of, you asked me earlier, am I interested in Chinese art or English art or whatever? I'm interested in art with some sort of common framework where we can understand, where each artist is coming from. And so in terms of the sculpture, is it about sculpture versus painting, or is it about sculpture in terms of Chinese art history?
I think it's also, you've raised a very interesting point about the experience of the work. Because it's not a painting, it's highly aggressive, being around it or being with it and engaging with it as you move around the sculpture. You're forced to actually sort of deal with the corporal nature that those are men with guns pointing at you. So there's a threatening aspect that's added.
Yes, also in terms of paintings, Manet, composed his figures very accurately. He knew exactly, what the meaning is going to be. He had almost total control. But here, as you say, the audience has a little bit more control. You can walk around it, and it looks different, from the back to the front, and you can see Mao's face, whereas with the soldiers, you couldn't really see their faces. So that's very interesting transformation.
Yeah, regarding this Gao Brothers, this piece of work, what I first wanted to say is, obviously, Gao Brothers' work always particularly approached in a way which is engaged with social and political element in China. And this piece of work is Mao's hot rifle aimed to Christ. It's not about my understanding is not about is against religions. It's rather than we obviously know it's not about secular and religions, you know, against each other. It's about I think it's more is about the element I feel is unease and disturbing. This kind of element I think about is we can very easily find in the some Western contemporary art. For instance, like Chapman Brothers, the piece, and I think Italian artist they called Catalans, who made a piece of work. I think in English they called the 9 Hours. The Pope is struck by a meteorite. So this kind of element, I think, is same as this piece. It's nothing about just mouth and Christ.
It's symbolic.
That's on the, looks like this, but I more feel it's in the artist approach because Gao Brothers' work are always strongly engaged with political element. So that's an artist choice. All artists that have different approach. Some artists do very directly engage with political element. Some artists will be in a very subtly approach. But the contemporary art we say is you can't avoid political things, but it's just a different approach. So I find that it's interesting thing is this is reminding me one important books. I think Susan Sontag. Susan Sontag, American critic and writer, whose work I think is one is a very interesting book called Regarding the Pain of Others. In this book, they talked about and following this book, and there's another I think is article is called the torch of regarding the torch of others. Is this kind of article is talk about. The American soldiers tortured the Iraq president. So her writing is not about to talk about the event what happened. American soldiers tortured the president, and the more talk about I think interesting point is about the viewer. What a viewer regarding this piece, the relationship between viewer and the piece of work. I think there's words we say that describe something like our society looks like sort of like a society of a spectacle. Yes.
Spectacle. Yeah.
So what we see the work, the viewer go to their own mentality. They want a narrative, one piece towards their own imagination or their own interpretation. So the relationship between the piece and the viewer created is much more interesting. So that's what when we coming down to that, we chat with the gentleman before. He said that some viewer past the gallery, they have some very, very interesting comments. These comments I find is very, very interesting. And some boys said, "Oh, why not shoot it a go? Why not? Is that Winston Churchill? This kind of because of that viewer's relationship with this piece." That create a new space and new meanings. So I regarding I think this important. It's quite very, very interesting.
Absolutely. I think I don't know if I mentioned it to all of you, but when we were installing the work, the reaction of the installers was for me one of the most sort of profound things that happened, and mostly because it was completely subconscious. So when they were handling the big Mao figures, they were sort of brutal with them, obviously white gloves and all that, but very much just would place them down and make sure they were secure and walk away. And with Jesus, completely different. They handled him in a different way. It was sort of a light touch. And this was literally while it was being unwrapped, and obviously none of them had stopped to consider the meaning of the work, but their interaction with it was for me just profound, because it was so much, they were layering the work with their own experience of those figures. And what we found is because we have the door open, that the reaction of people, some people won't even come in because they find it too shocking, too much. Some people come in and just on repeat say wow, but then they won't walk around it. They get stuck. They just stop and then leave. And I think, like you, that's been far, having seen it in photographs for 2 years, the interaction with it has been by far the most exciting aspect.
So yes, that's what I just said. Is I'm very interested about this relationship, the created by peace, like Gao Brothers' work, and we said Catalan Italian artists' work, and even the Chapman Brothers' work. That all created this space between viewer and piece of work.
That's right. Yeah, I just regarding your question about when I read the text which you emailed to me yesterday about follow all questions. I think the most important question is about you said to the Western world it seems too complex and difficult to comprehend this Gao Brothers piece. The reason is they don't know what's going on about background, about the history, about Mao's when he was running Chinese in that time, in that last century, and because those two figures they live in different worlds, different centuries. Jesus, is a long time ago, 2,000 years ago, and Mao was just died about
70
years. So how can they put it together? That's maybe the Western viewer, they will ask a question. What's the meaning about it? Why is that? I would like to follow Sheng's question about Mao's the theory. He always chooses who is the enemy, who is a friend. But who knows? Jesus, in my experience, you see any Jesus image in art histories, Jesus never show his like an innocent expression or gestures. Never show like that. This is the first time when I saw Gao Brothers' piece, this work. It's the first time Jesus show innocent. Why is that? So that's
interesting.
But Jesus, because he is a son of God, is always just show his love, his power, whatever, but never show innocent.
No.
Never. And Mao, maybe the Western viewer noticed about it's not one piece. It's not. It's eight. How many figures? 8 figures.
Total, yeah.
Yeah, totally. So the Mao, it's not a person in some way. I don't know. It's symbolized, for the Chinese people. I mean, in our memory, and why he's sculpted group, not one figure, not one. The Mao shooting Jesus, it creates 8 pieces, of Mao. There's some, the meaning involved. Follow your question is about symbolize. I believe a lot of elements involved is irony.
I think regarding this one, sorry, I just jumped in. It's not funny, interesting. It's because the Haili raised is why it's 8 figures. It's not just one. That's what maybe I guess is something is about probably is about our. It's not our collective operation, because as our human being, we all exist is sort of like is a violence element in our. We are not perfect. So that's why in good artist work, they can always raise some question that you following to think about. So I think in that you interpreted in that piece about 8 or not 1, probably I guess is is referred to our collective oppression, this kind of desire towards the society or towards the relationship with other peoples.
I guess Gao Brothers, we're not sure exactly why he created 8 figures of Mao, but I just guess, the Mao is not singular. He's, the plural in China means a group or a leadership. It's kind of, that things. It's not singular.
That he didn't, do you mean that he didn't operate alone? So that he had, like, many people helped him?
Yes,
so
it's a leadership. It's a leadership of communism, as that means.
The other thing, to go back to your point about Jesus being innocent, the thing I also find interesting is that he's post-death. So he's got the stigmata in his hands, so he's already been crucified, which means you can't kill him, right? So literally, that's impossible, right? Or there's no point to it, right? They can shoot him all they want, but you can't kill a dead man. He's already dead. And indeed, if he wasn't dead, he, according to Christian beliefs, would rise again from the dead anyway. So I've been wondering if there's a hopeful part about him, insofar as he can't be destroyed, he can't be killed. So are the Gao brothers trying to make some distinction that, no matter what, it will be okay, or it's that there's a happy sort of message in it? I don't think that there is, but I wonder if that's another aspect.
Yeah. Well, when I saw this piece the first time of Jesus' expression, it's the gesture. I just want to, it's come out straightly for me. It's like why is that to Mao? What's the matter with you? What's business with you? We are so different, sort of things. It tried to say something, that gesture. But Mao just naturally use a rifle and kill someone. And also I noticed this afternoon about this sculpture. It's not it's not bronze only. The on the right of the life, it's metal. Why is that? Did you notice about it's
that is a real knife.
Yeah, it's a
real knife.
It's a real knife
that goes at the end of the gun.
It's really scary. Yeah.
I just want to pick up on what Haili said just now, a very interesting word you use, irony. I do believe that there is an irony in using Mao, almost turned Mao's own user. Mao was a great helmsman because he knows how to use the idea of spectacle, which is what the Leguo said. He used the idea of spectacle and the masses to rule the people. And so we are now, the Gao brothers has actually turned it on its back and used him as a spectacle to actually criticize him. So, and the idea of spectacle, societal spectacle according to Du Bois, I think is also quite interesting because a lot of criticism of art criticism of Chinese contemporary art is all about spectacle, spectacularization, like the Olympics and all that. But I think that actually undermines the kind of real issue behind. For example, they've made work which is not, of course, if you use Mao, then it's very difficult to get away from the political element. But they've made other work like 20 Minutes Hug and High Places and all that, so which is all about more, as you said, about humanity, about sensitivity, human freedoms, and all that. So I think the fact that the work is a spectacle is perhaps kind of takes it away from the kind of important work they're making, which is all ranges of human emotions and personal freedom.
Yeah, and the human condition.
Yeah, exactly. The human condition, which I think is very touching and moving, and it's more than just about, of course, political side is quite big in China, isn't it? So you can't help but.
Yeah, regarding the when Bao said this is took further to Gao Brothers, I remember that I read one article. It's an interview. It's talk about the Gao Brothers, and the Gao Brothers said is we're not less regarded art, but then more important is part engage life. So that's what, and also the addressed a very important thing is that remember we are not just a political piece of work. It's an important, very important part, but we are also very care about aesthetics. We also very interested about work related with humanity, as you based 20 minutes talk. So that's a very, very touchy piece. You know, stranger have a hug in everywhere. So I think it's this piece is compared with other pieces. Difference is I'm not quite sure. I think as you addressed, you know, created this kind of spectacle. This is aimed to certain things. I'm not quite sure, but is spectacle, the piece of work.
At the same time, I think there is also some sort of connection with there's this is it Argentinian artist Santiago Sierra? He makes all this kind of relational work. You know, that's another kind of name that we call it relational work, which I always think, you know, although spectacle is about the relationship between two people and human beings, but I think there's also very, like the guanxi, you know, there's a Chinese word called guanxi, which is about the relationship between two people. So, you know, people like Santiago is making work about, you know, Bourria's relational aesthetics. But I think the Chinese history has been, you know, the Chinese way of dealing with people is all about guanxi.
It's a Chinese culture.
So Chinese. So what I'm trying to say is Chinese has always had relational aesthetics in their history, whether it's art or whether it's part of life.
Political or daily life, everyday life. Always you have to is important guanxi.
Yeah.
So,
the title I found very interesting. Same title as Spanish artist Goya. Yeah, it's not same, but execution. There's very strong words.
Yes.
Make you think about the history. I mean, in the art history, Spanish are always very kind of revolutionary. Somehow, with Russian, China, some similar history, and revolution in Chinese is 革命. 革命 actually means kill. Yeah, if you just look at these two words, 革命 actually is kill. So execution, and when you think about Mao, you think about revolution, because he always used that words. So when you think of Mao, then it's execution, 革命, kill. You always think about those a few words. So that's why these pieces are really strong. Yeah.
It's even stronger.
Yeah.
Probably, it's different from the Western, you know, the culture. Revolution in China, you know, when we was child, revolution, as Censorship said, it's like you kill someone, or you have to, you know, fighting until, you know, you get win.
Fighting to death.
Yeah, to death. Whatever, you know, the from physical things or culture things, like, you know, culture revolution. That means, I believe, it's different between Chinese and Western.
Yeah.
About revolution, that word.
It's Mao is utopia communism. Obviously, is he when he was young and energy man, he got an ambition to rebuild a new world. That's what he always addressed. But that's towards the late age, something is not turned his way, probably turned other ways. So there's a lot of history, historian, and always discuss about this matter. We say is the Gao Brothers chose this piece, Christ and Mao together. So this kind of a relationship, I don't because the Mao is we say he's circular, but he also he's in some kind of thing. As I believe I read some biography, and he's quite a Buddhism believer in certain sense. Well, I'm not saying he is, but this is quite interesting. Also, he's not completed. He believes something. Rather than communism, or rather than certain religions, or himself. So this thing is, I think, is a relation because of the Christ is just a religious symbol. It's God, but with the opposite, with one revolutionary, circular, and hold the weapons aimed to Christ. This relationship, of course, the sort of as I beginning I said, is disturbing our hesitation. But what will our viewer to see this? What will our viewer to try to interpret, printing this kind of narrative? So that's why I'm very interested to see some ordinary viewer have their say.
Well, yeah, since Mao, they became a leader of Republic of China in 1949, so his leading, his leadership to destroy, our pastime, our, the history, to even more than 5,000 years histories. So every culture, that's why he's called big cultural revolution. And after that, what's Chinese used to be looked at, without religion, without we absolutely cut down about our pastime. Like our generation is totally lost in that in that time. What we can say, as Sheng said, only one thing is we are worship power. Mao used a rifle, that's a power. That's why Gao Brothers, I believe, he sculpted Mao used a rifle.
You also, when we talked earlier, you pointed out that the gun was a Russian gun.
Yes.
That it is precise to a Russian model communist gun.
Yes.
Which I think is also interesting, as they thought even down to that detail to reference communism quite directly, and the power of communism. Right, because obviously the gun is one of the most powerful weapons that can take life away. But that for me is it points so much back to communism in a way that Mao as a symbol might not.
And we call this type of gun is Sanba.
Is it AK-47?
Yes. It's original from Russia, actually. So there's a symbolize about irony from Russia.
Well, so I think that's probably a good segue to then talk a little bit about sort of the censorship of a work like this, because to the Western audience and to me quite personally, censorship in China is so complicated. Right, or to an outside eye, it seems so complicated. You can write things, or you can create works that really throw in the face of the government and speak badly of someone as big as Mao. But then you can't write the words today and tomorrow on the internet, because you could rally. I was reading an interview with Ai Weiwei who was saying, you can't do that. Every time you type it in, it gets deleted. So you can't say tomorrow, because you could get together a group of people to meet tomorrow in a certain place. Or you can't say today, because you could say, I want to meet today to stage some sort of revolution. And those nuances, I'd just be interested to hear what you think, one, if this piece were to go back into China, what would happen to it? The Gao Brothers have said that it would most likely get confiscated. But then would they experience some really serious consequences for making the work? You know, you look at someone, again, like Ai Weiwei, who he's able to build the pavilion for the Olympics, and then 2 years later, he's being incarcerated. So again, it's those sort of nuances. I'd just be interested to hear, or maybe help unravel how complicated it really is.
Well, basically, you cannot draw this Mao's image or Chairman Hu's image. So you cannot draw those images.
You can't draw it.
You can draw them. You cannot. You cannot draw them. Otherwise, you will get trouble. Yeah, and I mean, its control are very, very hard. They can come to your studio in like in 10 seconds. So they are, you know, the policemen are they're everywhere. People, you know, and once I back to my studio, then my landlord he is next to my studio. And he saw me, he said, hi, I haven't seen you for quite a while. How are you doing? I said, all right, okay. 2 minutes later, then please lock your door. So obviously my landlord phoned the police, said, okay, he's here, he's back. You know, so you got no place to hide. So it's kind of pressure. It's kind of pressure. When you start painting or you start doing something, you always think, wow, it can be trouble.
Now you did a very physical, what's the word? It's not a protest, but you cut off your left finger on your left little finger on your left hand. And did you get in trouble for that? Was that seen as something that was really sort of controversial?
Well, every time I have a solo show in Beijing, I always got a visitor from local police station. They come look around, and then they take a photograph, and then they don't know which one should take it down from the wall, from the gallery. They have to back to the police station, report to the high management or leader, and they have to report again to make sure which one. Sometimes they get confused. They don't know which one should take it down. So they have no standard about which work you can put on, which work you cannot put on. And the one thing they show, if you have Mao's image, definitely taken down. Yeah. Some of my painting with the policeman holding the Chinese currency, has the Mao's image on the currency. They said, well, this one definitely cannot on the wall. So you don't know what's the standard.
Is that the means you can do some very critical and strongly engaged piece of work in the studio, but you cannot exhibit it in the gallery?
Yeah, definitely. And then you cannot, it's difficult to transfer, to send them to abroad. Or, yeah, they have very strong control.
Yeah, which I don't understand how that would have left China.
Yeah, they might probably go to southern China or Vietnam, or go to Vietnam first and can have from Vietnam. Yeah, definitely not Beijing or Tianjin.
Yeah, I've got some question as Carrie, you know, they talk about this piece, how come, if you could imagine if you bring back to China, what is going to happen? So when I met Sheng again about 2 years ago, you know, since he come back from China, I believe I asked him first question is, how can you paint that painting and it got huge market in China? Because it's happened. I know his studio is located in Beijing, and he paint a lot of some good paintings. But that subject is quite sensitive to touch that we call the bottom line or red line, 红线. So I asked him about this question. He said, well, you have he just said you have to be careful, and that's his experience, which we don't have.
Well, I mean, it's very hard to, you feel unsafe all the time. When I talk to the reporter a few times, and once the reporter just arrived, then police lock the door, and you cannot continue. So it means they are watching you very closely. Well, I think now it's much better. They not take you to the station immediately. They just let you go, but they just give you that kind of pressure. Well, if back to 10 years ago, they will take you to the station immediately. It's getting slightly better. Yeah.
Regarding this question, is because I live here for a long time, so we don't have this kind of trouble, luckily. But I can talk about is in the 80s experience, because at that time I was in university in China, and I engaged some like a 85 movement, art movement. So that's is there some censorship over there? And when I was in the university, trying to do some peaceful work, or more engaged with not criticize, but more sensitive matter regard about political relationship. So that's immediately said, no, you can't do it. You even in the institution, you can't carry on because you cannot complete your project. The reason is this is not suitable. If you carry on, you won't graduate. You can't gain your BA degree. So I know that is censorship. Yeah. That's a belief that time. And also in the 85, many artists do sort of avant-garde experiment. It's modernism, they trying to use different material and to create some sensitive. It's not necessary, even sometimes criticized, but still is very hardly to allow you to show in the public space. So that's my experience really in the 80s. But now in the what we get early knowledge is about early from artist friends or reading something like from the internet. Still there's some strict. And as Sheng said, it's quite strict in some area. But I think in general it still is approved for artists in this situation.
Yeah. The funny things in China about censorship, government never announced about, we're going to, judge everything and control.
You get freedom.
Yeah,
yes,
you're free. But the thing is you never see what is the bottom line, where. And this is the first. The second is the thing to judge your work is, the censorship is from the professional artist. It's not from unprofessional people. It's from professional artists, the good artists. So that's really
I think they represented the government's meanings how to selecting piece work in public space, and as Haili addressed this matter, I think yes, it is. The government is not saying you can't do this, you can't do that. As also all citizens have freedom, speech freedom. Yes, that's in Chinese law. But the censorship is very complicated, sometimes even very bureaucratic, like institution. if you want to show in the public space, you have to pass her one by one, but you can't pass this, you can't show it.
Yes, sir. Just even like a landscape. If you paint a landscape like sunset, there's some meaning involved. Why, you paint sunset? What does that mean, sunset?
Let's talk about not now, probably.
Yes.
So that's why I
so
say
sort of
in the early stage.
Yeah,
because now the situation, as we say, this is changed. But what we talk about is people in the early stage in the 80s. Yes, it existed.
Yeah, I think the Gao Brothers have trouble with their passport for many years, so they cannot traveling. But this is not the worst. The worst is for the performance artists. In the early 90s, a few artists get arrested because they're doing performance. Like Ma Liuming, like Zhu Yu. So I know a few artists are being arrested because they're doing performance in the public space. Yeah. So still, it's quite dangerous. Yeah, especially doing performance. Yeah. You wrote about performance, Chinese performance. You know more about more stories.
I think also a lot has changed, isn't it? I mean, I knew this artist who's not Chinese, who's actually I think he's Belgium, and he was doing all this tattooing of the pigs. And so you're right. I mean, there's no kind of like fixed rules or any kind of department, any kind of written down criteria of when to close a show. Or so on some good days they could be exhibiting the pigs, having private view, and other days they have to take the pigs back to the farm. So it's quite erratic.
I guess that's also an aspect we didn't talk about with regards to the Gao Brothers piece, because there's sort of a personal underlying part of the work that is, their father was captured and then went missing, and they believe he was executed. And so when we were talking about the word execution, I wonder if that's another reason that they chose, the word, the subject, to really talk about their father.
Yeah, but China is still the largest number of people or criminals get execution punishment every year. I think it's still the number one. Well, China has huge population and so many criminals.
Regarding Harry's question, I think so. It's because same things. I read the one interview is talk about the Gao Brothers that related, how sad it is when there was when they were a boy and his father missing, and afterwards they said suicide, but they believe, as you said, is probably executed, and so this piece of work maybe I think is with the personal sadness and. Especially regarding that hard time. That hard time is not it's many families, so many stories during that time. And that's everybody know. And there's so many books, so many beautiful stories. Beautiful means not it's sort of sad, touching, very touching story. It's true stories part of this period. So I think in this sense, I think there's have that personal emotion.
Yeah, once Gao Brothers told me they found who killed his father, and many years later, they went to his home and locked his door. Said, "We know who you are, what you done. We are the son of the I don't know his father's name." Mr. Gao. So then I asked them, did you punch him, or did you snap him, or did you beat him? They said, no, we done nothing. We just tell him we know who you are. We know you live here. we are the son of the person you killed. Yeah, which is very touching.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not that person killed his father, it's a system. So that's why Gao Brother, I'm not saying excuse him, it's about, Gao Brother really understand what's happening in the past time. It's not that person. Beyond that, it's whole system.
That's the suffering of many Chinese families, and I think it's another story related with Gao's brother also is because after his father said suicide, after they're trying to find shoes, and visited different family trying to find shoes. After 12 years, eventually, the justice be done. They say there is something like say, his father unlawfully died, sort of things, and just got 2,000 renminbi's compensation, and that's equivalent about 200 pounds. So that's very sad. So when I saw this one, I said, "That's so sad." When two boy and your mother lost their husband and their father, and after 12 years, just got a 200 pounds compensation for a life. So that's.
Yeah, the Gao's brother, they are keeping fighting, for whole years, and try to find the truth and keep fighting with their work, sculpture, painting, photograph, and we are very close friends. Yeah, so in Chinese art circle, most people, well, maybe 80% artists, they are chasing different things. Only a few they're chasing the truth. Yeah. So it's really very good artist.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably brings us to my final question, which is really about the market. And this, I mean no disrespect, and I'm not trying to be controversial for the sake of it, but there have been some people that have come in and said, oh, they make this work just to be controversial because there's a market for controversial, there's a huge market for controversial work, especially controversial Chinese work. And actually, you're probably the best situated to answer that question.
I think it's not so much the content of the work, but I'm interested in the way the ecology of the kind of art market and art institution is moving, and the fact that galleries like yourself can hold an exhibition which is united thematically rather than nationally. I think that's a very healthy sign because just seeing, well, it's not a very nice word, ghettoization of Chinese art and discussing Chinese art only from the Chinese viewpoint. It's not doing it justice, I think we're moving away from that with the biennales and all that. So Chinese artists can participate in exhibitions about themes, about meanings. And so, and also, as you said, there are more galleries opening up in Hong Kong, which is probably a more commercial and international city rather than, say, Beijing, which is just more about, nationalization of Chinese artists. So I think it's a good thing that we're more and more discussing Chinese work in terms of, the international platform, because there are lots of Chinese artists who are known by name now by all the curators and the critics. And I think that's, I'm very pleased to see the show here. It's a very good situation.
Yeah, I think it's this question is I always thinking is because the China, since the open door policy is started is about 20, maybe less 30 years, 25, 26 years since 79. It's changed so dramatically. You can't find any country so dense the population and change so dramatically. And those making element is later rest of the world to interested in what China is, because even I'm Chinese, sometimes I'm get lost, you know, because it happens so quickly. So that's why many Chinese artists' work engaged so traumatic events, like performance artists or some artists engaged with the political elements. So related with the gallery or commercial parts, so because that's interest points. So that's why I attract many gallery or institution have to focus. You can't ignore it, and find obviously, you know, different institution and gallery, the policy approach is different. I try to, you know, maybe it's different interests. So that's can't simply, you say, one artist's work is because this, that do this. But we think is there is some element is existed, but we can't say, you know, is particularly, you know, all artists. Some artists do it genuinely very good, beautiful work, very strong, powerful work.
Well, I think that probably is a good place to stop then. Thank you all very much for coming down. It was an honor to sit with you guys.